The United States says they're still looking to find a way to bridge the differences between Hamas and Israel to release all the hostages. I sat down with Ambassador Robert Wood, the alternate U.S. envoy to the UN, to discuss the priorities in the Middle East. I'm Frank Uciardo, and you're watching TRT World One-on-One. Ambassador Robert Wood, the alternate ambassador from the U.S. to the United Nations, thank you for joining us here on TRT World.
Frank, thank you for having me.
This is a busy time at the UN, but also an incredibly busy time for the world. And last year it was Ukraine that everybody was focused on. This year, of course, Gaza. What are the priorities for the U.S. during this General Assembly?
Well, thank you. We have three core priorities at this UN General Assembly. The first is to try to strengthen peace processes. As you know, we're facing, the global community is facing wars in a number of places. You mentioned Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, Sudan, Lebanon, the DRC. So what we want to do is to try to reinvigorate these processes, to try to bring about some stability in the various regions affected by these conflicts. So the President, the Secretary of State are going to be here, and they are going to be focusing their diplomacy on trying to help deal with some of these outstanding conflicts. Our second priority is to try to reinvigorate the humanitarian system, which is in bad need of repair. Basically, the needs are outstripping the international community's ability to deal with these crises. So what we hope to do through our diplomacy here is to try to help strengthen where they already exist, create new linkages between the private sector, international organizations, civil society, to try to do what we can to make the humanitarian system fit for purpose. Because right now, as I said, the demands are so great, and our ability to manage these demands is not meeting the task. So that's priority number two. Number three is to try to reform the international system, and the core of this reform effort is the UN Security Council. And as you know, Ambassador Thomas Greenfield, just a short week or so ago, put forth a proposal that the administration had been looking at, which would give 2 permanent seats to Africa and 1 non-permanent rotating seat to the small island developing states. And we've also said that we would like to engage in a text-based negotiation through the IGN process, the intergovernmental negotiating process. So it's one of many proposals that will be coming forward, but this is one that the President wanted to see launched because we think there needs to be more equity and fairness in the system. The Security Council right now is quite outdated, and so we need to take very seriously the calls from the international community to try to reform the council. So,
look, in terms of adding more voices to the Security Council, there's also the criticism that if you have, say, 20 people on the council, it's more people representative, are the Perm 5 going to give up their veto?
Well, I don't, certainly I can't speak for the other P5, but we have made very clear from the beginning that we did not and would not support any reform of the veto. But we do want to look for ways to make the council more effective. And that's going to be the product of discussions that frankly have been going on and will continue to go on as we move ahead with the reform process. But as I said, there'll be other models that will be brought to the table, but we wanted to be very clear in terms of putting meat on the bone of our commitment to seeing Africa get better representation on UN Security Council.
Over the years, the U.S. has been perceived as the protector of Israeli interests and casting dozens of vetoes in the Security Council. And lately, the Secretary General Antonio Guterres has slammed Israel for the collective punishment against the Palestinian people in Gaza, saying nothing justifies it. How do you respond to this?
Look, we've been very concerned about civilian casualties in Gaza, and it concerns us greatly, and we have been a leader in trying to help with the humanitarian situation, and we will continue to show leadership in that area. What we've been trying to do, and the focus of our diplomacy, Frank, as you know, has been on trying to get this hostage release ceasefire deal in place. It's been going up and down, but we are still engaged in discussions, and we are looking to see if there's a way to bridge some of the differences between Hamas and Israel. And we're going to continue to do that because we think that that is going to be the surefire way of ending this war, getting the hostages home to their families, and hoping to take from there steps that will lead us to a two-state solution. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen right away. But we first have to do what we can to get that ceasefire.
Let's put this in the context of the Security Council resolution that was adopted back in June, right? And it called for people to fully implement the terms of this resolution. And I believe you were quoted as saying that also the U.S. ceasefire proposal is the best, most realistic opportunity that both sides have right now.
Yes, and that is indeed still the case. It really is. We haven't seen anything else out there, any proposal that is going to, help facilitate the hostage release and getting more humanitarian aid in and a ceasefire. And so, Resolution 2735 was backed by the Council, and it showed that Council members believed that this was an important mechanism for trying to deal with this hostage release and get a ceasefire.
Now, I've watched you engage in some very intense debates with Russia's deputy ambassador in the Security Council. And of course, as you know, at the beginning of the Gaza issue, they were taking the moral high ground, even though because with Ukraine, they were committing war crime in a lot of people's opinions.
Frank, it's utter hypocrisy on the part of the Russians. They claim to be these great humanitarian supporters when it comes to Gaza, when they are committing atrocious atrocities in Ukraine. And so I will take every opportunity, as will other representatives at our mission, to point out this hypocrisy. And Russia thinks it's fooling countries on the Council and others in the broader international community, but they're not. And we will continue to call them out on this. But this is the Russia we're dealing with today.
What was the U.S. position recently when the General Assembly voted overwhelmingly to adopt a resolution demanding Israel bring an end without delay to its presence in Gaza?
Well, look, this is a complicated situation we've got in the region right now. And, we want to see, first and foremost, this war come to an end. And then we want to focus on doing what we can to reestablish a peace process that will bring peace to the region, not just Israel and the Palestinian territories, but to the region more broadly. And so that is where our efforts are going to remain. We think that is the best way to get to a peace. It needs to be a negotiation between the two sides. That is the surest way that we can be certain that the peace will be respected, that we'll be able to move toward a two-state solution. Unilateral measures, and to be very honest, Security Council resolutions, I'm not sure they're going to have the impact that a bilateral negotiation that both sides commit to, where you reach an agreement, that to me, and I think to many in the international community, will be a sign that once that's reached, then things will be in a much better place.
How has the wars in Ukraine and Gaza impacted the relationship between the United States and Turkey?
Look, the U.S. and Turkey have a very, very strong relationship, a very important strategic partnership, not just for the Middle East, but for the world. We have close cooperation. We talk a lot about the situation on the ground in the Middle East. We don't always agree on steps, but we do agree on one fundamentally important thing, is that we have to find a way to bring an end to this war in Gaza so that we can focus on the aspirations of the Israeli and Palestinian people, which is to have a peace in that region so that they can go about their normal everyday lives and not have to worry about attacks. And so Turkey is an important partner to us in this. And so we will continue to work with them and other key players in the region so that we can deliver something for Israelis and Palestinians.
Now, I know in your career you represented the U.S. on issues of disarmament.
Yes.
Do you think the U.S. will ever ratify or sign the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons?
I don't see that, Frank, and I was very much involved in pushing back against this treaty. When you look at the world, we'd love to see a day where there are no nuclear weapons, but we also have to be realistic. We've got a Russia who's a Russia that's been doing nuclear saber rattling. We've got the Chinese who have their nuclear weapons program. The trajectory is going upward. And
North Korea, of course.
North Korea. We obviously worry about Iran's nuclear program. So it's hard. What we want to do is try to reduce tensions. And we think if we can reduce tensions, then at some point down the road, we can obviously be able to move toward nuclear disarmament. But right now it's very hard when you look at the challenges that we're facing from these other global powers and from North Korea. And so that's the reality of the situation. But no administration, I would submit to you, has been more focused and committed to trying to see what we can do to move disarmament forward. It's just been very difficult because of Russia and China's weapons programs, their designs for building additional weapons, and North Korea, of course. I don't need to speak to that any further. So we're going to continue to look for those opportunities where we can indeed move forward toward nuclear disarmament, but I'm afraid at this time it's not in the cards.
In closing, I just wanted to touch upon two other issues that you actually dealt with, and that was bio and chemical weapons, and of course Syria comes to mind with that. Where do you see the future going with it?
Well, that is the core of the administration's policy with regard to Syria. We want to hold Syria accountable for its chemical weapons use. And Russia has enabled Syria. And as you've seen in the various meetings that we have had on this issue, chemical weapons, Syria continues to deny. And they continue to obstruct efforts by the OPCW to look into the extent of their chemical weapons program. So we're going to continue to push and hold them accountable. The U.S. will not relinquish our efforts to do this, although some countries would like us to do that, but we're not, because it is important to the Syrian people that we show to them that there is accountability. And you cannot just use chemical weapons repeatedly and get away with it. If we reach a point where that happens, it's a sad day for the world. So the U.S. government will be focused very seriously on accountability on the Assad regime for its use of chemical weapons.
Ambassador Robert Wood from the United States Mission to the UN. Thank you.